Palestinians clash with Israeli forces after a deadly Nablus raid in the West Bank.
A top Palestinian official calls the attack a massacre and pleads for international protection. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Ricky Mathay.
And I am Nina Richielago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. aims to intensify devolution of executive power to LGUs. Philippine Coast Guard spots Chinese vessels in West Philippine Sea. Philippines slams North Korea's missile test. United States, Japan, and South Korea conduct joint naval drills. And former U.S. President Donald Trump condemns Biden's absence in East Palestine, Ohio. The Marcos administration intends to intensify and strengthen local government units or LGUs in the country. Randy Bernardino tells us more.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. highlighted the importance of collaboration between the national and local governments for the benefit of the Filipino people. In his participation during the 2023 General Assembly of the League of Municipalities of the Philippines, or LMP, held last night at the Manila Hotel, President Marcos reiterated his support for the devolution of LGUs. Marcos says the role of local government will be expanded in all plans of the national government. The chief executive added that his administration is willing to listen to local officials who know the problem of their constituents to provide possible solutions.
Para sa akin, kailangan na yung mga ginagawa natin ay kami sa national government ay kailangan makinig sa inyo. Dahil kayo'y nasa local, masasabi nyo, alam na alam ninyo. Tignan nyo, kayong lahat, mga mayor, walang makakapagsabi sa inyo na kayong na may taong mas alam ang bayan ninyo kaysa sa inyo. You are the experts about your municipality. You are the most aware of the problems that you have. You are also the most aware of the possible solutions. Kaya napakahalaga na kami dito sa national government ay nakikinig sa inyo. Asahan ninyo na dito sa administrasyong ito ay nakabukas lahat ng aking pagdinig upang marinig kung ano ang pangangailangan ng ating mga local officials at kung ano man ang ating magagawa upang solusyonan ang mga problema na hinaharap ninyo.
One important measure that the Marcos administration is looking into is the implementation of the Mandanas ruling, resulting in the creation of Executive Order 138. Marcos says the administration will dedicate this year to study and review EO 138 to put in order the functions of LGUs. EO 138 aims to support an efficient implementation of the Supreme Court ruling on the Mandanas Garcia case. It will strengthen local autonomy through the full devolution of some national government functions to LGUs.
And so that's what we are examining. Asahan ninyo, as I said, that we are taking very seriously the issues that have come out from the Mandanas ruling and how we will implement it. Because hopefully, by next year, by 24, mag-i-improve na ang ating koleksyon. Kasi sa 2021, medyo maganda-ganda, medyo maahon na yung ekonomiya. Baka meron naman talaga tayong makuha. But we have to make sure that it is going to be na magagamit ng ating mga local official. Kung masyadong maraming mandated appropriations sa local level, wala nang natira, di ba? Wala nang may iwan.
Randy Bernardino for Mata ng Agila International, Trusted, connected, on point.
The government has taken steps to speed up the resolution of complaints against government agencies, which must be done within 72 hours of filing. Celine Dorado tells us more.
The government has been responding to the demands of the Filipino people and is removing the red tape in bureaucracy, especially on complaints and feedback for government agencies. This was after the Memorandum of Agreement was signed between the Anti-Red Tape Authority or ARTA and the Office of Executive Secretary, which requires government agencies to respond to complaints within no more than 3 days or 72 hours. Strategic Action and Response Office Undersecretary Rogelio Peig II and ARTA Director General Secretary Ernesto Perez signed the agreement at Malacañang Premier Guest House. The agreement would set up a system to hold government officials accountable for not responding to complaints. Under 8888 Citizens Complaint Center or CCC, the public is allowed to report corruption as well as slow government service processing, solicitation, and recommendations to state agencies. Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin hopes that similar agreements will be formed with other agencies to prevent red tape. Created under the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Act of 2018, the ARTA mandates to implement policies that will simplify bureaucratic processes and suppress red tape. In the Memorandum of Agreement, the 8888 CCC was given the power to act as a formal complainant in the ARTA against non-responsive government institutions. In case negligence is proven, it carries a penalty of 6 months after suspension for the first offense, and for the second offense is dismissal and permanent disqualification from the public service. The violation will also prompt the ARTA to issue warnings to the offending agencies and result in an investigation or filing of charges with the Civil Service Commission, the Office of the Ombudsman, and other appropriate courts. Celine Dorado for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Inflation is expected to decrease by mid-2023. According to the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, the government is already taking steps to combat inflation. NEDA Secretary Arsenio Balisacan is confident that the numbers will improve in the coming months due to the onion harvest season, as well as the closing of the fishing season. Hundreds of thousands of metric tons of sugar will also help. Philippine inflation rose to 8.7% in January, the highest since November 2008.
Chinese Coast Guard vessels continue to swarm areas within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone, or EEZ, adding to growing tensions between the two countries. Madeline Villar Moratillo has the details.
Amid the diplomatic protest lodged by the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, against China, vessels of the Chinese Coast Guard remain in Ayungin and Sabina Shoal, both of which are part of the Philippine Exclusive Economic Zone. The Philippine Coast Guard has confirmed the presence of the Chinese vessel following an aerial inspection of its PCG Cessna Caravan 2081, a multi-role fixed-wing aircraft as part of its routine maritime domain awareness in the area. The PCG also says that after the Cessna Caravan 2081 entered the airspace of Sabina Shoal, they received a radio challenge in both English and Chinese language from the Chinese Coast Guard vessel 5304. The PCG responded with its own radio challenge and insisted that it is conducting MDA flight within the airspace of the Philippine EEZ. The PCG ordered the CCG 5304 to leave the area. The PCG says they noticed 26 suspected Chinese maritime militia vessels within the vicinity of Sabina Shoal. When the Cessna Caravan 2081 conducted the 10 nautical miles from Ayungin Shoal, it again received a radio challenge from CCG 5304, which the Philippine Coast Guard responded and directed once again for the Chinese vessel to leave the area. While around Ayungin Shoal, the CCG 5304 was observed to be in close distance to BRP Sierra Madre, or not even 1 nautical miles from the Philippine vessel. Philippine Coast Guard personnel also observed 4 suspected Chinese vessels inside the area of Ayungin Shoal. The Coast Guard pilot informed the soldiers deployed in BRP Sierra Madre of the presence of Chinese vessels in the area. Even if the Chinese Coast Guard vessel which focused a military-grade laser to BRP Malapascua left the area, another vessel replaced and continued its monitoring on Ayungin Shoal. Despite the challenges, PCG Commandant Admiral Artemio Abu ordered the strengthening of maritime patrol and domain awareness flights in Kalayaan Island Group and the rest of the West Philippine Sea. Recently, the PCG has recognized its personnel patrolling the West Philippine Sea. Madilim Villar Moratillo reporting for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Senator Francis Tolentino believes the joint maritime patrol between the Philippines and Australia may strengthen the peace and security in the region. Tolentino made this comment as the Philippine-Australia joint military exercises start in Maguindanao del Norte. He says the move is part of the Quad security arrangement in the West Philippine Sea, participated in by the Philippines, the United States, Japan, and Australia. The lawmaker is also doubtful whether the joint drills would result in heightened tensions in the West Philippine Sea.
Meron tayong existing agreement with Australia. Sinabi ko rin na papunta tayo sa Quad security arrangement, Philippines, Japan, Australia, and the United States. So wala po ako nakikitang karagdagang tensyon, subalit lalo pa itong pag-cause, lalo pa itong mag-promote ng regional peace and security.
The new Balikatan exercises are expected to be held in the country, along with the setup of 4 additional enhanced defense cooperation agreement sites. These were the topics of discussion between the 2 leaders of the armed forces of the Philippines and the United States Navy. Nadine Aguilar tells us more.
The 2 leaders from the armed forces of the Philippines and the United States Navy have been central to the dialogue to secure a free and open Indo-Pacific region. The 2 officers both assured the continuous and stable defense relations between the Philippines and the United States in the ongoing trainings and exercises, as well as cooperation in humanitarian and disaster relief and counter-terrorism. The leaders also discussed the impending Balikatan exercise, which will involve forces of the 2 countries. The officials also paid attention to the first announcement made by the Department of National Defense, OIC Undersecretary Carlito Galvez Jr., and U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd James Austin III, in accordance to the building of 4 additional Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement or EDCA sites in the country. Nadine Aguilar, for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines condemned today the test of an intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, launched by North Korea last February 18, 2022. In a statement, the Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA, says the test of ICBMs and other ballistic missiles provoked tension and undermined peace and stability in the Korean Peninsula, in the region, and the world. The DFA reiterated its call for the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or DPRK, to cease from launching missile tests. It also urges North Korea to comply with the United Nations Security Council resolutions and resort to diplomacy and peaceful dialogue with South Korea. South Korea and Japan confirmed that Pyongyang fired an ICBM on Saturday, which landed in Japan's exclusive economic zone. The missile test follows North Korea's warning of a strong response to U.S.-South Korean military drills.
Government agencies have inspected the areas and infrastructure near the West Valley fault line. This is to prepare the public in case a magnitude 7.2 earthquake, or the so-called big one. Kim Liana has the details.
The Office of the Civil Defense, or OCD, conducted the Walk the Fault activity Upland Metro Yakal and Orientation, along with the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, and the RRMC and other representatives from FIVOLCS and Quezon City LGU. After a run-through of the areas near the West Valley Fault and infrastructures, OCD Administrator Undersecretary Ariel Nepomuceno discussed the relevant dates and knowledge and planning regarding the government's earthquake contingency measures. MMDA Acting Chairman and NDRRMC Chairman Don Artes said there will be adjustment to the Metro Manila Shake Drill that the agency will conduct this year. The official reminded the public that those in the infrastructure near the West Valley fault line need to be prepared, especially in the event of a feared magnitude 7.2 earthquake in Metro Manila, or so-called the Big One. Kim Liana, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A search and retrieval operation is underway following confirmation of the death of 4 passengers of a Cessna plane that crashed near the Mayon volcano. In an interview, Camali Galbay Mayor Carlos Baldo confirmed that remains of the passengers were found near the plane wreckage. The fatalities include the pilot, the plane's mechanic, and 2 foreign passengers. On Sunday, the plane's debris was found around 350 meters from the volcano summit. The Cessna RPC-340 plane had last contact with air traffic controllers around 6:46 in the morning and was supposed to have arrived in Manila at 7:53 a.m. Rescuers started the ascent the volcano as part of what was then search and rescue operations on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the Aircraft Accident Investigation and Inquiry Board says that records show there are 13 Cessna aircraft incidents from 2019 up to 2023. 10 of these accidents involved aircraft operations, which directly affect flight safety. 11 other serious incidents were recorded, including the Cessna plane crash in Camalig, Albay.
President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has declared Friday, February 24, as a special non-working day. Malacanang also released Proclamation number 167 signed by Marcos, which declared a holiday throughout the country. The president said the announcement is to enable Filipinos to enjoy the benefits of holiday economics. Meanwhile, the Department of Labor and Employment is directed to issue an appropriate circular to implement the proclamation for the private sector. Coming up, Israel airstrikes hit Gaza Strip. Death toll rises after large mine collapse in China. And Belgium beefs up security after a Russian spy ship is spotted off North Sea coast. Stay tuned for more stories from around the globe. We'll be right back.
This portion is brought to you by Final Match Security and Investigation Agency.
Malamig man sa Baguio, pero ramdam na ramdam namin ang init ng inyong suporta sa naganap na Let's Net Together Baguio. Maraming salamat mga ka-Net25 sa masayang pagsalubong sa mga paborito nyong Net25 Stars.
Baguio! Kamusta kayo naman? Malapakan!
Makinet together sa sayawan. Makinet together sa kantahan. At makinet together sa kasiyahan.
Not again!
Watch Let's Net Together Baguio ngayong February 25, 2023, 9 p.m. dito sa Net25. Net25 would like to thank the following sponsors.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Israeli troops killed 11 Palestinians Wednesday in a raid on the occupied West Bank city of Nablus. The Palestinian Health Ministry says more than 80 others suffered gunshot wounds in the attack. This is footage of the raid released by the Israeli army. It says the action targeted militant suspects hiding out in an apartment. They had been accused of shootings in the West Bank. The military says all 3 suspects had been killed either while fleeing the building or in a shootout. Palestinian authorities say the dead are from ages 16 to 72. Protests followed the raid. In Gaza, protesters burned tires and waved flags. One Palestinian official described the raid as a massacre. Hussein el-Sheikh called for international protection of his people. The latest deadly incursion follows an appeal by the UN Middle East peace envoy to prioritize ending the violence.
Violence between Israel and the Gaza Strip has been escalating in the last 24 hours. Israel launched airstrikes at the Gaza Strip following a rocket attack from the coastal enclave. Warning sirens blared at 4 in the morning local time in the cities of Sderot and Ashkelon near the Gaza Strip. The Israeli army states 6 rockets were launched from Gaza, which were intercepted by the army's air defense system. But witnesses on the Palestinian side say at least 8 rockets were fired. 2 hours later, the Israeli army retaliated with airstrikes. A fume of black smoke was seen from north of Gaza City. The Israeli army said in a statement that they were carrying out strikes in the Gaza Strip. The attack comes after an Israeli army raid Wednesday in Nablus. The assault in the northern part of the occupied West Bank killed 11 Palestinians.
At least 4 people are dead, 6 injured, and more than 50 are missing after an open-pit coal mine collapsed in northern China. State media reports the collapse occurred in the Inner Mongolia region mid-Wednesday. The collapse has been described by media and government agencies as a landslide. So far, rescue teams found 6 survivors. A video on social media shot by a coal truck driver shows rocks cascading down a slope, kicking up clouds of brown dust that engulfed several vehicles. More than 900 rescue workers have been dispatched to the scene. Over 100 pieces of rescue equipment have been sent to the mine. Rescuers are working by torchlight looking for survivors.
A top military official says the U.S. is limping behind China's warship building capacity. U.S. Navy Secretary Carlos Del Toro observes there has been an increase of maritime powers by upgrading American fleets at the National Press Club, but it falls short behind China. The Pentagon's goal is to have 315 manned ships by 2045. The U.S. fleet currently holds 300 ships, while China's Navy has about 340 ships that could grow to 400. Del Toro states that China's shipyard is unmatched to the U.S. Naval's output. The Navy Secretary notes the lack of adept workers adds up as a problem, but he proudly affirms that the U.S. has better shipbuilders, even though China may win in numbers of workers.
South Korea, Japan, and the U.S. held joint naval drills in the Sea of Japan Wednesday. The exercises are being billed as an opportunity to share ballistic missile target information, mastering detection, and tracking interception procedures. The exercises come after North Korea fired 3 banned missiles last weekend, including an intercontinental ballistic missile. Pyongyang says the tests show North Korea's capacity for a fatal nuclear counterattack of hostile forces. North Korea rejected condemnation by the UN for the launches, saying it is unfair and unbalanced. It says the tests are a justified countermeasure to the recent U.S. deployment of strategic bombers to the Korean peninsula. Kim Yo-jong, the powerful sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, says the frequency of using the Pacific as a firing range depends on the actions of the U.S. Relations between the two Koreas are at one of their lowest points in decades.
U.S. President Joe Biden and NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg attend a meeting with 9 leaders of NATO's eastern flank in Warsaw. The B-19 countries of the flank consist of Bulgaria, the Czech Republic, Estonia, Hungary, Lithuania, Latvia, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. Polish President Andrzej Duda says the summit would determine the next steps of the Bucharest 9 bloc. Duda adds they will also discuss possibilities of providing further support to Ukraine. Biden also reaffirmed Washington's unwavering support for the security of the alliance. He also cites NATO's Article 5 that states an attack against one member is an attack against all. He reiterates it's even more important for the bloc to continue to stand together for democracy.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has visited East Palestine, Ohio. A train carrying toxic chemicals derailed in Ohio earlier this month. The accident ignited fire that covered the town. It also set off evacuation orders, a chemical scare, and a federal investigation. Residents fear for their health as the toxic chemicals could have an impact on their environment. Trump says Ohio needs answers and results from the government. He also criticized President Joe Biden for visiting Ukraine rather than East Palestine. But he hopes Biden can provide financial assistance to East Palestine. Trump also urged Biden to visit the accident site. Meanwhile, the U.S. representative, or rather Department of Health and Human Services and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention agreed to deploy medical personnel to Ohio. But Trump vowed he would return if the federal government does not give East Palestine the treatment they need.
Belgium has launched an investigation after authorities spotted a Russian spy ship off the country's North Sea coast. Justice Minister Vincent van Quickenborne says discovery has prompted the government to spend millions of euros to beef up security. Van Quickenborne says the ship might have been surveying Belgium's key energy and communications links. He says there were concerns about the ship's proximity to wind farms, undersea gas pipelines, and data cables, as well as other critical infrastructure. The boat was spotted last November after being reported in Dutch waters. It had turned off its identification beacon, a compulsory device allowing shipping authorities to identify and track vessels. Van Quickenborne says the exact motives of the Russian vessel are not known, but he says they must be viewed in the broader context of the war in Ukraine.
Ukrainian soldiers who surrendered to Russia claim Kyiv decided to kill them by dropping bombs on their locations. One soldier says Russian fighters took them to a safe place and gave them food and first aid. RT News gives us an exclusive interview.
На нас начал штурм. Мы приняли решение сдаться, потому что было двое двухсотых, и мы ничего не смогли сделать. Нас взяли в плен, потом наши дроны летали и скидывали воги. Двоих убило, двоих затрехсотило.
То есть, когда вы сдались,
да.
Ваши не стали церемониться, начали бросать воги по вам.
Мы сдались, и наши прилетали дроны и скидывали воги. Нас отвезли в безопасное место, нам дали первую помощь, накормили, напоили.
Я недавно попал в плен под Никольским. Если бы я не попал, то я был бы уже на том свете. Пацаны, меня не били. Отношения нормальные. Поэтому, если хотите остаться в живых, пожалуйста, лучше сдайтесь. Иначе будет тот фарш, который я видел по этим окопам. Поверьте мне, это очень страшно.
Some residents of Donbass now live in temporary accommodation centers in Russia. They say Ukrainian military forced them to leave their homes. Kyiv troops also shelled their houses, even killed their pets. Here's an exclusive interview from RT News.
Мы с Попасной.
Не было контактов с украинскими войсками, когда вы жили в Попасной еще?
В основном не общались. Один зашел военный. Я домой бегала, ходила, собачку кормила. Котики у меня были, козочек ухаживала. Один военный зашел, собачка была на цепи. Я слышала, что собачку убил. Захожу, собачка моя лежит. Я ему, так, знаете, от себя. Чтоб ты, думаю, гад, ты до утра не дожил. Чтоб тебя где-то так, как и мою собаку, ты убил. Ни за что.
К нам прилетел снаряд под дом. А перед этим еще, я вам расскажу, ходят украинские солдаты ВСУ с каким-то прибором и смотрят, у нас дом был хороший. И вот они прошли, и через некоторое время к нам прилет. Мы уже знаем, что это уже дали наши координаты. Сначала уничтожали, где хорошие дома. Был у нас колодец. Пошла я по воду в колодец. Меня увидели, обстреляли, разбили колодец тут. Кто? Украинцы еще у нас были.
Но мы прекрасно понимаем, что это Европа участвует в этом всем. Рассказывает, куда нам идти и как нам идти, не спрашивая людей, хотим ли мы туда. Даже за то, что мы там что-то захотели, до сих пор, в принципе, и рассказывают о том, что это мы виноваты. Ну, извините, мы войну не затевали. И во Львов наши с Донбасса не стреляют, у них с огорода, правильно? Ихние дети сейчас не прячутся по подвалам, как люди с Донбасса.
Up next, a Florida gunman kills 3, including a news reporter and a child. 16-year-old French student fatally stabs his teacher. And long queues in Nigeria as cash crisis continues. Please stay tuned as Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news.
This portion is brought to you by 318 Automart, Arlex Trading and Construction Supplies. This portion is brought to you by Robic Builders, Quezon City Motor Vehicle Inspection Center.
Mexican President Andres Manuel López Obrador suggests that former Public Security Minister Genaro Garcia Luna could become a witness in the neighboring country. He says Luna can reveal links between organized crime and high-ranking Mexican officials. Luna was convicted of aiding drug trafficking in the United States. López Obrador says there is the possibility that Garcia Luna will testify as a witness. He hopes Luna does so in exchange for revealing whether he received orders or informed the former presidents Vicente Fox and Felipe Calderon. A spokesperson for the current Mexican government says in a tweet that justice has arrived. Garcia Luna has been accused of stealing more than $200 million of public funds. He was public security minister under Calderon's presidency from 2006 to 2012. He was found guilty on all 5 counts following a high-profile trial in New York.
A man suspected of killing a woman on Wednesday returned to the scene of the crime hours later and gunned down a television reporter and a 9-year-old girl. These attacks occurred in Pine Hills, a suburb west of Orlando in central Florida.
So we have detained the person believed to be responsible for the murder this morning, as well as the shootings this afternoon. He is 19-year-old Keith Melvin Moses. He is being formally charged in the murder from this morning, and we expect additional charges for the shootings of the 4 people this afternoon.
A 20-year-old woman was slain at around 11 in the morning. A team from Spectrum News arrived hours later to cover the murder. Later, gunman Melvin Moses arrived and opened fire on the Spectrum News crew, injuring a camera operator and killing a reporter. The gunman then entered a nearby home and shot a woman and her 9-year-old daughter. The victims were all taken to the hospital, but the girl and the Spectrum News reporter died.
No one in our community, not a mother, not a 9-year-old, and certainly not news professionals, should become the victim of gun violence in our community.
The county sheriff added that the suspect had a lengthy criminal history that included gun charges, aggravated battery, assault with a deadly weapon, burglary, and grand theft charges. The sheriff said the gunman knew the woman killed in the morning but had no ties to the other victims.
A teacher at a school in southwestern France is dead after being stabbed by a teenage student during a class. The 52-year-old instructor had been teaching a Spanish class Wednesday when a 16-year-old student attacked her. The tragedy happened at the school in the seaside town of Saint-Jean-de-Luz. The teacher received emergency aid at the scene, but later died of her injuries. A local television station reports the student locked the classroom door and stabbed the teacher in her chest. The station quotes an unnamed source as saying the boy then told another teacher a voice had told him to carry out the act. The lad is in police custody. No details have been released about his background. Such attacks at schools in France are rare. In the past 40 years, there have been fewer than a dozen deadly incidents in French schools.
The UN's top international court of justice orders Azerbaijan to end its blockade in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. The UN says there is a real risk people would suffer from irreparable harm.
Measure. The Republic of Azerbaijan shall, pending the final decision in the case and in accordance with its obligations under the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination, take all measures at its disposal to ensure unimpeded movement of persons, vehicles, and cargo along the Lachen corridor in both directions. In favor.
A prominent rights group accuses Tunisian President Kais Saied of racism and hate during his speech. This after he vows to crack down on sub-Saharan African migrants. Saied urges his National Security Council to take urgent measures to tackle an influx of migrants. He says hordes of illegal immigrants from sub-Saharan Africa are still arriving, with all the violence, crime, and unacceptable practices that entails. He warns that a criminal plot has been underway since the start of the century to change Tunisia's demographic makeup. The statement sparks an outcry online. Many accuse the president of outright racism and invoking right-wing conspiracy theories. The Tunisian Forum for Economic and Social Rights says Saied's discourse drowns in racism and hatred. Tunisians are grappling with a deepening economic crisis, surging inflation, and shortages of essential goods. The heavily indebted country edges towards a possible default.
In Nigeria, a chronic shortage of cash leads to lines outside banks and protests in some cities. This, even as the central bank says the policy is needed to curb the amount of cash outside the banking system. What you see right now is a shot of people lining up outside a bank in Lagos, hoping to get some money. Nigeria has been hit with a cash shortage after the central bank began to swap old Naira notes for new bills.
The International Energy Agency, or IEA, says oil and gas companies are not doing enough to cut methane emissions. In its latest annual Global Methane Tracker report, the IEA found that emissions from the energy sector rose slightly last year to 135 million tons, just below 2019 records. Methane is responsible for around 30% of the rise in global temperatures since the Industrial Revolution. It has a faster and more powerful impact than carbon dioxide reduction. Reduction in methane emissions may prove the best way to limit short-term global warming and rapidly improve air quality. The energy sector accounts for around 40% of total methane emissions attributable to human activity, second only to agriculture. While fossil fuel operations are reducing the amount of methane emitted into the atmosphere, overall emissions are still rising.
Powerful winter storms are wreaking havoc in the northern United States. The bad weather covers a wide band of the country from the West Coast to the Great Lakes. Up to 60 centimeters of snow is expected to fall as blizzards sweep through the region. Temperatures in some places will dip to minus 30 degrees Celsius. Nearly 1,500 flights have been canceled, and the storms have knocked out power for tens of thousands of people. People are being told to stay home. Authorities say they should only travel if it is an emergency. And if they do venture out, motorists are advised to have an extra flashlight, food, and water in their vehicles. An unusual blizzard warning is in place for the mountains around the Los Angeles area. Snow is expected to fall even at relatively low elevations. South Africa faces an electricity crisis while enduring daily power cuts. In the outskirts of Johannesburg, people are having plastic bottles installed into their roofs to bring them a source of light. Globe installer Darren Hardy says they are now experiencing extreme load shedding and a dismal situation. However, he says a bottle globe called the Amandla Elanga can solve the crisis for the poorest of the poor. The device is equivalent to a 55-watt globe. Hardy says every single person that has a corrugated roof can have natural sunlight.
For the day, you see? So it's acting like a solar light. It's natural light coming through, prevents the kids from burning in terms of the paraffin and candles and all of the burning that happens in informal settlements. Okay, no light.
Farmers in southwestern France are hoping it will rain soon. Their orchards and fields in the dropped valley need moisture as water supplies dry up. The growers are facing a drought this summer because of record low winter rainfall. Since last June, the region has received just 100 millimeters of rain. Normally, between 300 and 400 millimeters would fall. That has had an effect on lakes and rivers. Reservoirs currently have low water levels. Some farmers say they will plant less this year because there is just not enough water to support their crops. Coming right up, Elon Musk keeps laying off Twitter employees after saying cuts were done. SVP offers free rides to Philippine Arena for Agila's Lebanon game. And Taylor Swift wins Global Recording Artist of the Year award. Catch more news when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Alam namin ang iyong pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka na mangamba. Sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang angking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa New Era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Airfares are expected to be more expensive as the Civil Aeronautics Board, or CAB, imposed a higher fuel surcharge on airlines. Philippine Airlines, or PAL spokesperson Cielo Villanueva, says CAB made the adjustment following the recovery of global air travel. She says PAL will follow the fuel surcharge adjustment along with its expansion of the airline's flight route network with China. PAL is also mulling direct flights to Perth, Australia, and additional connectivity flights from Clark to Caticlan, Busuanga. Despite the fuel surcharge adjustments, Cebu Pacific President and Chief Officer Sander Lau says the airline would continue giving seat sales to its passengers. Air Asia Philippines spokesperson Steve Dailisan, on the other hand, says airfare cost changes will be minimal with no effect on air travel demand. In its announcement, CAB will raise to level 7 the fuel surcharge due to the adjustments in the national, or rather international, price of jet fuel in March.
Elon Musk is still laying off Twitter employees. The Twitter CEO is letting go of dozens of workers across the sales and engineering departments, including one of his direct reporting executives. This is happening despite his promise not to sack more employees after its brutal layoff exercise in November. Twitter has shut down 2 of its 3 India offices and directed its employees to work from home as part of Musk's mission to cut costs and turn the social media service profitable. Improving Twitter's ads has been Musk's key focus since he bought the company. He has correctly pointed out that Twitter's ads are less personalized and effective than its competitors. Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas, or SBP, is offering free rides to and from the Philippine Arena in Bukawi, Bulacan. This is for the FIBA World Cup qualifiers showdown between Gilas Pilipinas and Lebanon on Friday night. SBP says they will begin picking up ticket holders at exactly 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday in 2 designated departure areas, SM Grand Central in Caloocan and SM North EDSA in Quezon City. SBP wants fans to fill the 55,000-seater venue for the Gilas-Lebanon match, which will serve as the de facto test event for the FIBA World Cup. The Philippine Arena will also host the Gilas-Jordan match on Monday night.
The big winner at the 76th British Academy Film Awards was German film All Quiet on the Western Front. The star-studded award ceremony recognized the best movies of the year. In the United Kingdom, Lee Lance tells us more.
A gut-wrenching war film from Germany was one of the big winners as British cinema kicked off its annual BAFTA, or British Academy of Film and Television Arts Awards, on Sunday, with less than a month to go to the Oscars.
Directing is not an exact science.
With 14 nominations, German director Edward Berger's All Quiet on the Western Front started the night as the joint most nominated foreign language film in the BAFTA Academy's 76-year history. The Netflix drama bagged 7 awards, including Best Film and Best Director for Berger, as well as Original Score and Cinematography in the build-up to the Academy Awards on March 12. With a nod to modern-day conflicts, including Russia's invasion of Ukraine, he said that the film and novel showed that war is anything but an adventure.
3 years ago, we felt there was a rising sense of nationalism, of isolationism throughout Europe, throughout the world. Parties going to the right, questioning institutions that had brought us peace for 70 years. And we felt it was the right time to make a movie to remind us of how it ended 100 years ago.
The German movie has tied with Anne Ling's martial arts drama Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, co-starring Michelle Yeoh, which also earned 14 BAFTA nominations in 2001. Yeoh was nominated for Best Actress this year as a worn-down laundromat owner who transforms into a high-kicking heroine in the wildly inventive Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Reporting here from London, United Kingdom, I am Lee Lance from Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Taylor Swift has once again made history. She won Global Recording Artist of the Year in 2022 from the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry or the IFPI. She is the first artist to receive the award 3 times. According to Billboard, the Global Recording Artist of the Year award is a recognition of the most sales, downloads, and streaming acts in the world. Swift is the most successful artist in 10 years of the award's history. Her October 2022 album Midnights became one of her biggest album releases, making it no surprise for her to be given the award. According to IFPI Chief Executive Francis Moore, Swift is truly an amazing international star who continues to evolve and grow while maintaining strong connections with her supporters around the world.
The Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, is upset about how South Park creators mocked her in the hit TV show's episode. Sources close to Markle says she is not only annoyed but overwhelmed after the show's spoof on her was introduced as a sorority girl, actress, influencer, and victim. Insiders also claim Markle refuses to watch South Park's satirical episode about a royal couple. In the episode, a fictional prince and princess of Canada bemoan their lack of privacy and then embark on a worldwide privacy tour.
Really hard to look back on it now and go, what on earth?
The story mocks the royals' claim of wanting a paparazzi-free life, but then embarking on multiple high-profile media projects like books and interviews. Viewers say the episode is indirectly a take on Markle and Prince Harry's life, since the story shares many similar events about them. However, South Park creators did not mention that the episode was about Markle and Prince Harry.
It's Thursday, and to help you go through the remaining days of the week, here's a quote from Jennifer Lopez, an American actress and singer. Doubt is a killer. You just have to know who you are and what you stand for. That is such a strong message, don't you believe?
From a strong woman as well,
Oh,
right?
exactly. Very successful where she is at.
Remember, she was Jenny from the block, but now she's like a worldwide, not but she is a worldwide superstar.
Exactly. I think she has created an empire for herself, right?
That's true.
But you know, Ricky, like they say, stand up for something or you will fall for anything.
That's correct. That's correct. Also from a strong woman, Nina.
And Ricky Matay.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Ricky Matay.
And I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Ito